All right. Am I live? Is it working? Welcome to Coffee with Ryan. Today, this episode, this live stream is titled Seeking Truth, and we're going to get into what that means in a bit. But let's let some folks join. Let's see if I am actually live, because I thought Google Hangouts was going to stop working. So if it is working, that's a very good thing. So let's see. Let's pull up the chat here on my phone. Yep, I'm live. So I kept getting this notification. I'll wait for everyone to join and just kind of say random shit for a little bit. Let's see here. So basically, in July, I kept seeing a notification every time I did a live stream that said Google Hangouts is going away on August 1st. So I guess that's tomorrow. So I guess this is my last time that I'll be able to use Hangouts for a live stream. And then from here on out, I'm going to have to use some sort of other streaming platform. Let's wait for some folks to join here. Let's see what happens. Thank you all who are just joining. We're going to get into some interesting things today. It's going to be fun. It's going to be weird. It's going to be, I don't know. It's going to unfold naturally. We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. As a lot of you know, I've been away for a couple weeks. So what's up, Bruce? Great to see you. Thanks for joining. How you doing? Great to have you here. Let's see if I can just have the chat up here so I don't have to look at myself talking. I don't like doing that. Boom, boom. Anyways. So, Bruce says he's doing great. That's fantastic. You say you're piping away. Right on. Right on. Fantastic. So it looks like we are having 3 people watching now. So anyways, let's get right into it. It's been about 2 minutes. That's enough time for people to decide whether or not they want to join. How's everyone doing today? So we're going to get into some great stuff. You saw the cover. We got a neuroscience book here. And we got a book on the great philosophers. This is a beginner's book. I actually ordered so I got really interested in the history of philosophy. And so I ordered a 10-book or 11-book volume. There was a pretty good deal on Amazon from 11 volumes of Cobblestone. I think it's Cobblestone's or Copleston. Copleston, let's see, Copleston, History of Philosophy. Yeah, it's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Copleston, A History of Philosophy. So I just went out to California to do a studying intensive for graduate school. And I realized that I need to be more educated on the history of philosophy, all the way from Plato, to modern day. Because in psychology, one of the things that is evident is that it was born out of the philosophical thinking. It emerged out of that fertile soil that the philosophers have been turning over for hundreds of years. So I ordered the history of philosophy so I could really understand. And I looked in the library at first at these books. That's why I knew I needed to get them, and found that this author is particularly good at summarizing the philosopher's beliefs as well as their life story and stuff like that. So I'm going to be able to get all that information in a succinct way. And then the philosophers that I particularly find interesting, I can go ahead and seek further information from them by going to buy their books. So a few of the books that I got coming, I've got a book by Hegel, Heidegger. I think I got a book by Kant, The Critique of Pure Reason. And I think there's a Nietzsche book coming. Those old philosophy books are pretty affordable. They're like $8, some of them. $8 for like a classic philosophy book from a famous philosopher. I guess they're just so rampantly available. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Get myself a little more educated philosophically. That's kind of one of my goals for sorting myself out, is by the end of this year or by this time next year, I'd like to really feel like I have a more wholesome and complete understanding of the philosophical thinkers. I feel like I have a good beginner's understanding, and I understand the basic concepts and the major influences that Western civilization is standing upon at this point in time. But I want to, you know what I mean? I want to aim for mastery within the field. And then as I move deeper into my psychological studies, I can really ground all that in a historical bedrock, so it's kind of like the saying, don't build your house upon sand. I don't want to build a modern understanding without really seeing where we emerged from, where our Western thoughts, Eastern thoughts, our thoughts as a humanity have grown out of, and where are we going from here. Then I can start looking to the future and ask myself the question, what does that mean for us now? Where are we headed? And what ideas need to be tweaked? How can we introduce new phenomena? Things like that. So that's what I'm thinking. What do y'all think about that? How does that sound? Does that sound like a good way to do it? It's quiet today. That's what happens when you don't stream for a couple weeks. Get the cold shoulder. Like, shit, man. We're going to show you how it feels. You've been ignoring us for 2 weeks. You're going to get some of that back. How does it feel, buddy? Yeah, that's right. We're going to make you feel it. Corey. Welcome, Corey. It's good to see you. I don't know if you've been in this chat before, but if you haven't, then welcome. It's great to have you. Corey says, sounds about right. Great. Glad you think so. I'm going to pull my chair up here. There we go. So I'm just going to rant. I'm going to ramble until this chat gets cranking. There's nothing I can do. Usually people keep me busy with a lot of little anecdotes, questions, comments, things like that. So, okay, why do I also bring in neuroscience? That's the question. Okay, so what I'm looking at for my personal studies, and remember, this all relates to sorting myself out. All right? Because for me, part of sorting myself out is my education. When I did the future authoring program on selfauthoring.com, which Dr. Peterson obviously created with his team, what I found was that my education was one of the major goals for my future. That was before, and I've talked about this before on the channel, that was before I decided to go to graduate school. I didn't think I was going to go to graduate school. When I did the future authoring writing, I realized how important. Welcome, Thomas. Yeah, go grab your coffee. Bruce says, excellent idea. Very succinct. Thank you, Bruce. I realized how important it is to me to be educated. Not on a surface level, like my bachelor's degree, but to have a level of mastery. So I applied for the master's/PhD program in depth psychology. Now, depth psychology is not widely accepted by modern educational authorities. Like, really big and prominent universities do not like Carl Jung, typically. He's seen as too obscure, too mystical. All the things that Jung never wanted to be categorized as, he got categorized as. Because he always said, I'm not a mystic, I'm a scientist. He really tried to hold on to the idea that he is a scientist. But unfortunately, it was not successful because he still ended up getting washed away by modern academia. Now, people like Jordan Peterson, who is a brilliant scientist, of course, a social scientist, a psychological scientist, and a philosopher, he is now revitalizing Jung's relevance, I think, to a large extent. Now, Jung is, immensely famous. I mean, people are going to read Jung no matter what. Certain academics are going to respect him no matter what. But the thing is that a lot of the mainstream authorities are going to discount it. Now, Peterson, I think, has a real shot at bringing Jung back into mainstream academia, because you see Maps of Meaning right here behind me. Maps of Meaning is a very scientific book, but it's also deeply religious and philosophical, and he leans heavily on Jung's work. As you know, Peterson leans heavily on Jung's work in general. But I digress. I think I'm going on a side tangent here. My point in saying all this is I'm on a mission educationally and why am I studying Jung? That's where I'm getting to. And how does that relate to sorting myself out? Well, we've established that my education is very important to me. It's a part of what I'm trying to work on to improve myself and to work towards my future. And I'll get into other components of the future authoring, because I started doing more future authoring writing. I finished all the writing, but you can always go back once you start the future authoring program. So anyways, I pursued Jung because I have a scientific side of me that, I love studying neuroscience and all of that stuff, like I was talking about, but I also really need the more permeable and unquantifiable philosophies. Not everything can be measured. Not everything can be scientifically evaluated and observable. Adela, welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm so glad you're here. It's so great to be here, everyone. I've just missed you all so much. So if I know that not everything, for me, and this is just my beliefs, can be measured. I don't think there's certain elements of our psychology, of our human experience, that just are not going to be able to be put into a framework that is scientifically measurable or falsifiable. That's what I really believe. And in order to have a working psychology, in my opinion, we need to make room for both the scientific side of things and the immeasurable aspects of the psyche. I think Jung did a good job holding the tension between both of those parts, both of those oppositions. After all, one of the main legacies he left behind is how to unify oppositions within your psyche, within your mind, within your human experience, how to bring them together into, what you could refer to as the alchemical marriage, the Hieros Gamos. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't have those other languages down. I think that's, is that Latin? Hieros Gamos? I don't fucking know. See, there's another area where I'm undereducated. Other languages, it's funny, like there's areas where I'm like super strong in that I feel confident, and then there's other areas where I'm just like, fuck. One of the reasons for that is I did not pay attention in grade school or high school at all. Like, I was an addict by the time I was 14, an alcoholic. Unfortunately, runs really strongly in my family, and I just there's a lot going on in my household and at school, and I just went the wrong direction. Luckily, I'm sober today, as you probably know, most of you. But yeah, my basic education was not really fleshed out. So then I went to undergrad, and I really had to re-educate myself based on the passion. So then I get super educated in certain areas. Like I got super into the science of human transformation that involved neuroscience, that involved philosophy, that involved meditation, that involved all these different interdisciplinary avenues that I took on, both on the scientific side and the more obscure and hard to measure side, like I was talking about. Thomas says, oh, thanks for writing in, by the way, Thomas. I'm hoping you got your coffee. What is your educational starting point, if I might ask? First time I actually caught you live. I'm on GMT. Fantastic question. So like I was trying to explain, because of my history, my Daniel, welcome. I just got your message on Messenger, by the way. Nolan, hey, buddy. It's so good to have you all. I really missed all of you. My elementary school, my middle school, and my high school education was not great. I mean, of course, I learned some things, but because of the rough edges around my childhood, let's just say that I didn't excel in that place. I was of a rebellious nature, and I did not take school seriously until my college. So my undergraduate degree was at a liberal arts school called Naropa University, which is also like a totally, none of my education has been traditional, right? So I went to this liberal arts school and studied psychology. They had a good psychology program. I studied Buddhism, history of Buddhism, meditation, stuff like that. Learned how to meditate. That was fantastic. I studied scientific psychology. And then I went through this program at this institute called the Earth-Based Institute. And this is where I would say that my education really got grounded. I learned way more at the Earth-Based Institute than anywhere else for my starting point, even more than undergrad. There's a guy that runs the program. His name's Michael Jospe. Now, this is a training program in Boulder, Colorado. It's called Nature Connected Coaching. Now, for many of you, you know life coaching is now a buzzword, almost to the point where you don't even probably take it seriously. Oh, life coaching, what do you do? Give people advice, blah, blah, blah. You know, but there's actually it's a transformational science. And Michael Jospe is a transformational scientist at heart. That's his expertise. How do we grow? How do we transform? How do we change? How do we will ourselves to the life that we want to live? And so his education involves neuroscience, involves nature connection, because after all, one of the primary things, and if you watch the Strachan series, you probably got a taste of this in the most recent episode where he talks about the wilderness and how that affected his psychology. But one of the primary things is a lot of us are more receptive to change when we unplug from the city environment and go seek refuge within a more natural environment. And what that does is that triggers certain elements of our brain that aren't typically active. The rhythms of that natural environment are going to bring your nervous system to a state of attunement, which you're receptive to new ideas, new epiphanies, new realizations, and potential long-term growth. Then you can bring that back into your suburban life, your urban life, whatever. Or if you live out in the country, you just maintain that state. The thing that bridges into eventually, though, is that you don't actually have to go anywhere to be in that state of nature connection. Once you get it down, you start seeing nature in everything. You start noticing that everything is nature eventually when you get to the bottom of it, right? And so you bring yourself to this different state of awareness. That's a primary, almost meditative state of being that helps to facilitate a transformational process. But that's a whole philosophical pathway that we could go down. It would take a long time. So let's just leave it at there for now and then go into the other elements. There's the other elements is there's these archetypal stages of human change and growth that people go through when we try to accomplish any goal, right? And, you can look up, for example, the stages of change, right? So I'll actually look that up right now, and I'll even share my screen for those of you who let's see here. Yeah, this will work. Oh, this one's better. Open a new window. All right, so I'll explain it to you for those who don't see the screen here in a second. I'll share my screen. And don't worry, I'm going to get to the point. Trust me. I know I'm all over the place already today. That's just how it is. So this is kind of part of the science of transformation, and you can see here the stages of change. You start typically in pre-contemplation. So in pre-contemplation, you don't even have any idea that there is a problem to be changed, or you're in unconscious paradise, to put it in a Petersonian way. He talks a lot about that in Maps of Meaning. So in pre-contemplation, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you had a drinking problem or a relationship issue. We'll stick with a drinking problem just to keep it simple. That's in pre-contemplation. Other people might know you have a problem, but you have no conception that you have a problem whatsoever. It's just not even in the forefront of your mind, right? You're not aware of it at all, okay? So you're in the Garden of Eden. You're in unconscious paradise. You wouldn't even know that. You don't know any better, right? Now, contemplation is where things start to get painful, because when you're in contemplation, you're aware that a problem exists. It's like, okay, I know that drinking, there seems to be like a problem with my drinking, but I don't know. Let's just see if it goes away. There's no real commitment to action, like it says right there. I actually feel like we should use a different example than drinking, because it's almost too extreme. I'll come up with a different example. Okay, let's just say let's say video games. You play video games all the time, then you realize all of a sudden one day, oh shit, maybe I play a little too many video games. I feel like I'm not doing other things that I want to do. Like, I really would like to read my book or go to the gym, but I just don't feel like I'm doing that. I feel like there's a problem here. But you don't have any sort of commitment to action. You're kind of just sitting with the problem. You're just letting it fester. And then preparation is, okay, I'm ready to change. As they say in the 12-step programs, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick of this problem. So then you get into preparing to change it. Maybe it's time to take action on this baby. And then you make a plan, right? So you go into, what am I going to do? Then you modify your behavior through a set of actions. And this is where you're actually really changing the neural pathways in your brain. You're creating a new way of being. And that takes repetitive and consistent practice on a daily basis. You have to really stick with that intention. It's a lot of effort is involved. Then you go into maintenance, where there's less effort involved, and the new pattern has become an automatic normative behavior in your psyche. So there is an established pathway of least resistance that is taking you towards the desired place that you want to be in. And that is your maintenance stage. Then you go into relapse. Now, a lot of people think of relapse is, and I'm going to stop sharing now because you get the point. But a lot of people think relapse is a failure. And I'm going to check the comments here real quick just to make sure I'm not falling too behind. So a lot of people think relapse is a failure, okay? And that's a mistake, because as one of my favorite teachers always likes to tell me, the only failure is the failure to learn. So relapse, instead of looking at it as something that's outside of the paradigm of transformation, we actually, in this stages of change model, put relapse as a part of it purposefully. Like, it's something that we want to be there, right? And that's not to say that we want people or ourselves to go out and fail, but we know better. And we're not naive enough to think that there's not going to be slip-ups, whether it's a slip-up in thinking, a slip-up in your mood, a slip-up in your behavior, where you actually act out an old behavior. That would be like an alcoholic goes and takes a drink, or you have a slip-up in your relationship with your partner. All these things are relapses. But if you learn from the relapse and you don't get into a shameful cycle of judgment where you just beat yourself up, and then because you're unworthy, then what's the point of doing anything anyways, right? Like, that's the self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm a piece of shit. Well, guess what? Pieces of shit don't transform. So if that's your starting point, you're screwed. You know what I mean? And when I say pieces of shit don't transform, you could actually twist that on me and look at it and say, well, actually, manure composts into the earth and then grows flowers. And I get all that. But my point is that the starting point is to eradicate the shame and just look at the relapse from an objective perspective of, okay, what can I learn from this? Then you go back into the stages and hopefully go right back to contemplation. You skip pre-contemplation. Instead of going back into the unconscious paradise, you go straight to contemplation and you start to, what did I learn from this behavior? So I'll give you an example just to really firm these up. And I'm going to go ahead and read these comments in just in a minute. So just give me 1 minute here. So when you relapse, let's say anger. Okay, so anger is something, when I was 17 years old, anger is something that I struggled with enormously. 16, 17. Before that, I had a huge problem with anger, but I was in pre-contemplation. Everybody else knew Ryan's a real hothead, but I didn't really see it as a problem. Okay. Then my anger started becoming really toxic and volatile, and I started breaking down. I couldn't hold it anymore. And so I went into contemplation and realized, oh shit, I got a real problem with anger. Like, I'm making myself sick and I'm hurting people around me. I'm snapping. I'm yelling. I'm losing my temper too often. I'm driving people away from me with my anger. So then I was in contemplation, still just watching myself get angry, just watching the rage fester. And then eventually I decided, okay, I need to start figuring out what I'm going to do. So I start in that process, I start going into preparation. How am I going to address this? So I started reading books on anger. Okay. I started, how am I to, and this is an investigative stage, preparation. How am I going to deal with this problem? Okay. A lot of you know what that stage is. How am I going to, so if you see you have a problem, right? You're in the contemplative process, then you move into preparation. You're trying to figure out, what the hell am I going to do? You're looking at maps, you're looking at books, you're looking up YouTube videos, you're looking up all the resources, you're asking people questions. How did you deal with your anger? You're really digging, you're investigating. This is really important. You got to take your time in this process. Then eventually something will click. So I read books on anger, I did my investigative research. Then I started taking action. I started meditating. Every time I got angry, I went into my meditation practice. I read Thich Nhat Hanh's book on anger. So I started, really treating my anger with a sense of mindfulness and care. And when I wanted to snap at someone, I would stop myself. I would take care of my anger, and it would go away. And I was like, oh my God, I can handle this situation without being so angry. So I started practicing. It took tons of effort, right? Because when that surge of anger, that's a really strong neural pathway that wants to go down the path that it's been going down. But you have to redirect it. So it takes focus, energy, intention, and you got to stick with it. And so eventually, after I practiced that for weeks, I went into maintenance. Now, not getting angry is just kind of a part of my day. I don't have to think about it all the time. It's become a new automatic pathway. Right, exactly. So unconscious automatic pathways work in both directions. They work in our favor for things we want, habits we want, and they work against us for habits we don't want. Automatic behavior is a part of being human. We always are in automatic behaviors. It's just in deciding and taking conscious controls of which behaviors we want to be automatic. So anyways, you go into maintenance, and then relapse naturally happens. Do you think I never got angry again? Do you think I never lost my temper again? Of course not. We're not naive enough to assume that, right? We know that I'm going to fuck up. So I'll lose my temper. Like maybe I snap at someone, or maybe the surge of anger comes up one day and it's so strong I can't avoid it. So there's two paths there at that point. You can go back into unconscious paradise and just live out that cycle of anger for months and months and months until you realize it's a problem again. Or you can go straight to contemplation. What I did was, when I relapsed in anger, I said to myself, okay, I can feel the shame, and the shame wants me to go back into beating myself into the ground and into unconscious paradise. and self-fulfilling prophecy of worthlessness, and just continuing to prove that to myself by being a dick, and then everyone else will call me a dick, and then I'll feel like more of a dick. But no, I didn't do that. I said, what do I learn? What happened? Really being specific. What happened in this situation that I need to learn from? How did I let it get to this point of boiling up? What did I miss? I inquire, I extract the information, I go back into contemplation with that inquiry, I take it into preparation, and now I have new information to move forward with. So I'm now more equipped, and I'm actually stronger than I've ever been because of the mistake, because of the relapse. So that's why I tell people relapse isn't a failure. The only failure is the failure to learn from the relapse. Actually, relapse is a learning opportunity if we choose to make it so. And then maybe we won't have to make that mistake again. So I'm going to get to your comments now. Thank you all for letting me go on that tangent. And let's see. Bruce says, damn, you've got an addiction to scientific understanding. In some ways I do, as it regards, or addition. You said an addition or an addiction. I don't know which one you meant there. If you said addition, I'm not sure exactly. You've got an addition. You've got addition. I think it's addiction. I think you meant addiction. So yeah, Bruce, in some ways I do. You know, like when it's related to understanding human psychology, how we change and grow, how we transform, how we live meaningful lives, that's where I really excel. You know, I really want to understand that stuff. There's other areas, like I tried to say earlier, I think there's areas where I'm woefully undereducated and inadequate in my knowledge. And that's okay. You know, like Peterson says, in order to do something new, you have to be a fool. In order to master anything, you have to start off as a fool. Like I said, I want to learn more about the history of philosophy. So I'm starting off as a fool. I know a little bit about philosophy, especially the recent philosophers. I've done some of the literature reading. I've enjoyed it, but I look at it as a whole and I don't feel like I'm really where I want to be. So I'm flailing about clumsily trying to patch that hole up. Thomas says, it sounds like a comprehensive way of keeping you on an appropriate path for your identity while also reminding you to pet a cat when you're encountering one in the street. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a good balance between chaos and order, right? And that's one way to interpret what you're saying is you want enough structure to keep yourself balanced, to keep yourself focused and having an aim. But you also want enough chaos that you're able to explore unknown territory and you're able to try out new things. Because order doesn't do new things. Order establishes rigid principles within a certain domain. Chaos is unfettered, unknown territory to be explored. So the balance between those two things, that's the archetypal balance that Peterson talks about so often, the balance between chaos and order. So that's a great comment. Bruce says, that's how I did it. Quit drinking 6 months and then reintroduced it moderately. Nailed it, man. We must step back and reframe our issues, not avoid them. That's fantastic, Bruce. And that's another, some people don't need to abstain from drinking permanently, right? For some people, they had a problem with drinking. They went through a process of transformation, and then they mastered the ability to drink in moderation. I've seen that happen to several people. That's a fantastic pathway forward. Now, there's other people who had a problem with drinking and they just can't touch it again. Whether it's because of their genetics or because they're afraid or because they just, for whatever reason, don't want to go there. It's just everybody to each their own. That's another path of transformation that I learned from the Earth-Based Institute and other areas, which I realized I kind of went down another tangent here, which is something I'm known to do, I suppose. But the other thing about it is that everybody's so unique. And Dr. Strachan, of course, in his mentoring with me, has made this so clear. We have to be careful about treating people with prescribed universal methods, because there are nuances in every personality that are so unique that to assume that what works for one person will automatically be healthy for another is a dangerous presupposition to bring upon oneself. Then you start oppressing your own uniqueness. So when it comes to universal models, like the stages of change, like archetypes, things like this, treatment models, advice from books, we have to always think, how does this apply to me? Right? Not like trying to make myself into somebody that I'm not. I want to be in a state in which the theory that I'm gathering or the information that I'm pursuing is useful to who I am. Because I believe we have something, there's something, we're not blank slates, right? Steven Pinker wrote the book, The Blank Slate, where he debunked the idea that we're blank slates, which has been an idea that was pushed, obviously started with John Locke in the 1700s. Maybe go back to the tabula rasa, but there's something about each human being. As a species, we're obviously not blank slates because we're biologically hardwired, but then even to the minute details, right? We're 99% similar. Every human being is 99% similar in genetics, but there's 1% difference, and that 1% difference covers a ton of territory insofar as we relate to one another, how we approach our lives, our personality, how we react to environmental stimulus, things like that. So, and if you're interested in personality and genetics, I would recommend checking out Robert Plowman's work. He's one of the leading genetic psychologists in the world. He's got good stuff. Robert Sapolsky talks about the balance between nature and nurture. He's really holistic about it. He tries to look at each bucket of biology as a different impact, but he doesn't try to favor one thing over the other. He's really holistic about it, which I like. James Tolan says, creeper. Am I the creeper? Damn, I've never been called a creeper before. That's harsh. I had never been called a creeper. That's just a weird it's just such a weird insult. Especially because I don't understand the context of it at all. Did anyone watch Jordan Peterson's new video, by the way? The Meaning and Reality of Individual Sovereignty. I started it, but I need to hunker down and finish it. Did anyone else watch that? What else do y'all want to talk about? I feel like I went on a tangent there. Did I finish my points? Oh, yeah. Well, the base of my education, Earth-Based Institute. By the way, please, questions, topics. Daniel actually had a good Facebook message that I'll look at here. I don't know if it's appropriate to read to everyone, but it might bring up a topic. So anyways, Earth-Based Institute was kind of the base of my psychological education as well as my undergraduate degree in psychology. But so I worked after I graduated the Earth-Based Institute's program and received their certificate, I worked for them for, I volunteered for a while, and then I landed a full-time position for a while, and I learned a lot working for that. And I started teaching. I would teach the material. So that stages of change material that I just showed you, I've taught that. I've taught the neuroscience part of the workshops. I've taught the more basic principles of the program where people are just getting introduced. And then, of course, Strachan's model, the self, soul, spirit, the sub-personalities model that he teaches, that his psychological understanding is based in. that's something that's where I consider is my niche. That's where I've been the most trained. That's where I feel like I'm the most competent. I've spent, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours with Dr. Strachan. And I'm pretty excited because this is kind of cool news, everyone. I've got 2 teaching contracts where I was hired by 2 separate companies to come teach them Dr. Strachan's model. And that's over the next 2 months. And then I've got 20 different people that I'm working with one-on-one to guide them through understanding the basis of their subpersonalities and getting them started on Strachan's model. I'm pumped about that. That's like, it feels like a huge career. And again, we'll relate this to sorting myself out. That feels like a huge career opportunity to get contracts like that and to be able to really implement the models that I've been learning and to start getting some more depth hands-on experience. So I'll keep you all posted. I feel like ever since I did that future authoring writing, things have really progressed over the last especially the last year, but the last couple of years too. I mean, I didn't do the future author. It was almost a year ago today when I did the future authoring writing. A year before that, I was starting to get into Peterson a couple of years ago, I think 2016. So maybe that's 3 years ago. Wow. Has it been that long since he really hit the scene? Because I got to know Peterson right before he was like just insanely famous. It was like, I think it was immediately after the issue at Toronto University. So it was his first Joe Rogan podcast, the very first one he did. So I was on the earlier end of really getting obsessed with all his lectures, because as soon as I heard that, I just listened to him nonstop. It was crazy because he just got more and more and more famous as we went along. It was insane. I mean, when did you join Peterson? Was it right at the beginning, everyone, or was it more in the middle or recent? Or you tell me, because I know I was on that. And then I started podcasting. I started my podcast, and then I think that was in 2017. Was it? Or 2018? No, it was in January of 2018. I think I started my podcast. And my first podcast, Soul Tree, which is no longer active, but yeah. And I don't think I would have started podcasting or gone to graduate school if it wasn't for Peterson. I don't know. I just don't think I would have been as driven to sort my goals out, Nolan says, I saw the first Joe Rogan as well. That's fantastic, Nolan. How are you doing, by the way? Thomas says, that sounds awesome. I was going to ask, what is your profession and how do you fit your self-improvement and learning around it? I'm going to have to do this myself soon as I've just been hired recently. Oh yeah. What are you doing? What's your occupation, if you don't mind sharing? Yeah. So it's weird for me. So like, since I'm in this psychology program, obviously pursuing the PhD, by this time next year, I should have my master's degree, I hope. And then the PhD is three more years after that. So by the time I'm 30, there's an opportunity to have my PhD, which I have no idea what's going to happen over the next 5 years, but that's my goal. I'm really focused on it. I'm intent to finish my dissertation and get that rolling. So I really want to follow through on that. So you all hold me to that, all right? Like if I start squirming out, I don't really know if I want to do a PhD anymore. You guys just slap me around a little bit, all right? Because it's important. Now, obviously, hopefully I get it by the time I'm 30, but I have no idea. So for me, the career path that I've chosen is I really want to involve doing this, sorting myself out somehow, because this channel is super important to me. So I want it to be podcasting, interviews with experts. Like I want to continue. I'd love to interview Peterson someday. I've got big goals on that end. Continue interviewing people like Strachan, Tim Freak, Ken Wilber was a great opportunity to land. I mean, Ken is just a powerhouse, and obviously has had his heyday and his day of fame, much like Peterson is in right now. So getting Jonathan Haidt, I'd love to interview Jonathan Haidt. There's a lot of folks like more than I could name right now that I could just rattle off, but interviews, podcasts, video presentations, all involving how to live a meaningful life, philosophy, psychology, stuff like that. So I want to continue what we're doing here, but then aside from sorting myself out, leading group workshops that are based on transformation. So I'd like to either travel across the country or have workshops here in Colorado where we're doing 2 to 3 day intensives that are just self-growth. Like people want to work on themselves, they come to a workshop. And also, for a while I was working with clients. I think I'd like to continue that. It looks like I'm going to have quite a few clients to work with coming up here. So I've been kind of split. I've had a lot of success working with clients one-on-one, as a life coach, right? But also from Strachan's model, I would call it more of a facilitator. My training with Strachan, I've had a lot of great. I'm not saying success like I'm so good at it. I'm just saying success like it's been something I've enjoyed doing and it's been productive, right? Like there's people that way better than me out there, of course, but I feel like there's been some traction there for me. At the same time, what I'm wary of, you heard all the things I just named. Sometimes I worry that something's got to give, and it's not going to be this, sorting myself out. It can't be. I get way too much out of being here with you guys. It's way too beneficial for me. And you all add so much depth and joy into my life. It's just too meaningful. So I can't leave that. I'm not going to stop teaching because I really like teaching, and the group workshop thing is really important. So the only thing I could really give up on would be one-on-one clients. That's the only thing that I would be willing to, if I had to let go of something, it would be that. So I hope I answered your question. So I'm still I'm still stumbling forward clumsily, as I say often, to copy Peterson, to imitate his sayings in my career path. Like I don't feel like I'm well established. I don't feel like I've got my career shit together. I feel like I'm still an amateur eagle trying to become an adult eagle, but hopefully still an eagle nonetheless, like something that could really be beautiful and developed and well thought out and sustainable. But right now I'm just at the beginning. Loff is here and he's been watching me stumble forward. He knows. He saw me he was there for Soul Tree. So he knows I'm just trying to figure this shit out. So yeah, I'm just a beginner and just trying to make my way through. Thomas Welch says, I was hired out of my PhD, molecular genetics. Holy shit. Now that's a topic. See, that's what I want to learn. I want to learn about that shit. Molecular genetics. That's impressive, Thomas. You probably have a fucking massive IQ if you're studying that. That's pretty cool. Well, what do you think, Thomas? I have a question for you because with my studies with Strachan and my research into genetics and psychology, one of my favorite topics is the polygenic impact on personality. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Gloff says, good to see you, my friend. Just got out of part 1 of the ABV exam. Pass the fucker. Nice. ABV. We got to see what that stands for. I think you told us you were taking it a month or so ago and you didn't pass it. So let's see. It's got to have to do with your job, which is you're a CPA. Yeah, that's right, I think. ABV exam. You're going to have to just write it. I don't know. CPAs who specialize in calculating the value of a business. Oh, shit. So you're already a CPA. I know that. And you're going to specialize in calculating the value of businesses. Dude, that's sweet. That's fucking sweet. Maybe you could calculate the value of sorting myself out. So I know what we're dealing with here. That would be cool. If it's anything less than like $500 million, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm just kidding. Nolan says, I'm doing well, still mainly focused on writing poetry, but I've been trying a lot, but I've been trying to read a lot more poetry. Also, I've been thinking that I might start a small writing group at some point. Hey, if you start a writing group, that's something I'd be interested in. Also, reading poetry, that's a great idea. By the way, my uncle is a poet. I wanted to talk to you about that. He's a hermit and a poet, and he's a highly educated man. If you walk into his house, it's just fucking piled with books just everywhere. Like, it's crazy, but yeah, he's a poet. He has a few books published out. One is he wrote one book that was on, I think it was it let's see. Bear with me here. I want to get, he's got 2 poetry books published, and then there's one book he wrote about poetry that was about a certain poet. His name's Bruce Holsapple. You can find him on Amazon. Let's see. Oh, it's The Birth of the Imagination was the book he wrote, and that was about William Carlos Williams on his poetry form. So actually, I'll post this Google book link here in the. So yeah, actually, I want to interview my uncle on this channel soon, because I'd like to. If you're interested, Nolan, the link is right there, because I'd like to learn from him. He's a pretty interesting guy. Gloff says, I'm currently reading Harassment Architecture. It's like an accelerationist Catcher in the Rye. Wow. You enjoying it? Are you getting something out of that reading? That's pretty cool. Harassment Architecture. I've never heard of that. Fascinating. Wow. You know, why did I call this Seeking Truth? Is it making sense? Does that seem like a good title? Because I feel like what I'm trying to say is we are, all in our own way, trying to seek truths, trying to seek ways that life is worth living for us, whether it be scientific truths or psychological, philosophical, or religious truths. There's all the concept of truth is the framework of the structure of our reality. If there's no truth, then there's nowhere to stand. You know what I mean? And I believe that there is somewhere to stand. You know what I mean? There is. We're not in a groundless chasm. We're not in a nihilistic infinite universe. There's something. There is a way to make order out of the chaos, as Peterson talks about. By the way, I think Maps of Meaning is on audiobook now. If you haven't read Maps of Meaning, I'd recommend getting the audiobook. If you're not into, it's a really tough read. I mean, it took a lot of work to get through that sucker. So, audiobook would be the easy route to go if you're not into that. But Thomas talking about the genetics of personality. It would be very polygenic, probably incorporating multiple systems within each system governed by thousands of genes. The endocrine system has a likely heavily influence. I'm afraid I don't study humans. Yeah, well, probably better that you don't study humans. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Yeah, polygenic, for everyone who doesn't know, is basically the interaction of several different genes. And so a polygenic impact on personality would mean several different genes are interacting to create a characteristic trait. So they're in coordinates with one another. It's not as simple as one gene. We found the gene for being very creative. It doesn't work that way. It's super complicated, and that's why the field is just the field of genetics as it relates to psychology and personality is moving forward. in a solid direction, making progress, but it's moving forward slowly. It's not there's not going to like blow up all of a sudden. It doesn't seem like to me, but it's moving forward more and more rapidly all the time, it seems like. And there's quite a bit of evidence that points to the polygenic influence on personality, enough to say that we know it's at least some. Now Dr. Robert Plowman posits that 40 to 60% of personality is genetic, is based in DNA. Let's say that instead. It's based in our DNA, 40 to 60%. Now that leaves the other half of that spectrum to environmental influences, and the environment is a huge deal. It's this whole nature versus nurture debate is, I think, a little bit overblown. Like people want to think it's one or the other. It's all nature, it's all nurture. It's like, no, it's a circular thing. They feed into one another. That's my take on it. But anyways, the book's called Blueprint by Dr. Robert Plowman, if I didn't already say that. Gloff says, do you believe in truth? Do you believe truth is dependent on time, or is truth something eternal and outside of time? I don't think truth is dependent on time. I think truth transcends time. That's my take on that. Like, truth is not bound by a timeline. Gloff says, what parts of personality are nature? Well, it's not like my anger is nature, but my caregiving, nurturing love is nurture. Like there's not a thick boundary between our different parts of ourselves, right? So let's just break it down this way from Dr. Strachan's perspective. We're all made up of various sub-parts, sub-personalities, mechanisms, characteristics, traits, ways of relating to the world. Now, you could break that into virtually dozens and dozens of circuits. Okay, you can think of them as biological circuits, right? Neural pathways in the brain that fire based on signaling, and they fire towards certain. It's a way of saying this. They impact certain behaviors. Okay, so it's the line between nature and nurture isn't very. It's not easy to identify in any situation. I don't think it's really not. Like, you could take two war veterans who have been through exactly the same trauma. One of them is totally incapacitated, and the other one is he handles it well, like a Jocko Willink. You could take two children raised in the same household, treated fairly similarly by their parents, and they end up completely different because they have different genes. You could take identical twins, and this has been done several times, although the ethics of it are questionable in different circumstances. Identical twins separated at birth, raised in different households, end up with similar personalities many times, just replicable over and over and over and over again. So what we do know is that genetics matter in personality. The question is how much. What does that look like? What is the are we going to find the polygenic structures of certain personality traits? Are we going to know for sure what it means to be angry, what it means to be creative, what it means to be accommodated, what it means to be open, what it means to be conscientious, all these different categories of personality that we could come up with? That's the next question. Are we going to be able to figure that out? The one that they did find, I think it's MDMOA gene. Let's see. I think anger or warrior, and this is an oversimplification. MDMA gene. MDMA. anyways, there's a certain gene which with people who have less of it, and I have a book right in here. Actually, I'll just grab it real quick. Bear with me. It'll take me 2 seconds. This is a book by Adrian Rain, The Anatomy of Violence. Sorry if this is boring to certain people, but I love this shit. I'm geeking out. So there's it's MAOA. Okay, so there's a gene, the MAOA, which has become known as the warrior gene, based on research on aggression in monkeys. So let's see here. I'm gonna find a good one. Okay, let me read a paragraph or two to you here. There is no question that we all must be extraordinarily cautious in interpreting genetic differences between ethnic groups, especially with respect to crime and violence. At the same time, the evolutionary argument put forward is not entirely implausible. Counterpoint: while the base race of low MAOA gene is about 34% in Caucasian males and 50% in the Maori, I think that's in tribal people, it is 70% in the Chinese males. Yet the homicide rate in China is about 2.1% per 100,000 is less than that of the United States. And the Chinese are not exactly known for their warrior-like tendencies, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes on to basically talk about, let's see, how I got to find a better sense. Sorry, everyone. That's the problem with just randomly opening a book to cite something. It's just totally unreliable way of doing it. Anyways, what he goes to say, he tries to look at all the variables in this gene, but the I think it's people who have a lack of the MAOA gene actually that are the ones who are prone to being more aggressive, even though it's called the warrior gene. It's weird because it's having the lack of the gene, which it's what's inhibiting the aggression, right? So yeah, anyways, interesting shit is what I'm trying to say. Now, Robert Sapolsky, who wrote the book Behave, who's a famous endocrinologist, says he actually was kind of critical of this MAOA gene or whatever it's called, because he was saying, well, you can't just simplify it like that. That's not it. I don't remember where exactly it was in the book, but his book Behave, he was basically saying it. I think he was trying to almost debunk the idea that this gene was highly correlated with aggression, or that it was responsible. Oh no, he wasn't. What he was doing, he was debunking the idea that it was solely responsible for aggression. And he was saying, well, we have to look at the environment, we have to look at the brain, we have to look at all these different buckets of biology to formulate a complete idea of where the aggression is coming from. It's not enough to simply look at this MAOA gene. Anyway, sorry to bore you with that. That's one of those things that I'm interested in, but I have no idea if anyone else is interested in. Thomas says, and clearly people aren't interested in that because I lost about 3 viewers since I started talking about that. They're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Whatever. I don't give a shit if people don't think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. Thomas says, I study plant and pathogens. Ryan's summation is wholly correct. Systems biology is the buzzword these days. Griswold's here. Welcome, bro. I've been missing you. Where the hell have you been? Levi just joined us. Welcome, Levi. Thank you for saying that, Thomas. I'm glad that since you are a highly educated person in molecular genetics with a PhD, that is very encouraging. Actually, that's probably the best. It's probably the best compliment you could give me right there. Thank you. Although I don't feel like I deserve it, to be honest. I feel like I need to really fucking push myself a little harder to make sure I understand biology, because it's a monster of a topic, you know. Like this book on neuroscience right here. Sorry, I'm being so loud, everyone. I feel like I've banged the table like 4 times. It's probably really agonizingly annoying. This book is just it's a great textbook, but it's just so dense. It's like I got to read some philosophy and some more abstract stuff just to take a break from it, you know, sometimes. Um, Gloff says, maybe I'm a free will absolutist, but I believe nurture, specifically self-nurture, if you will, is far more powerful than one would have us believe. Not to say nature is totally irrelevant. Yeah, it's all up for conversation and debate. They're both very important. That's for sure. Griswold Grimm says MAOA genes, eh? Yeah, that's right. That's where we were going down this line. And by the way, this book by Adrian Rain, The Anatomy of Violence, is it's all a study into the biology of violence. Basically, he takes a look at different cultures. He takes a look at psychopathic behavior, or psychopathic behavior, criminal brains, and what's happening. He looks at the whole biology of the situation. If you have a damaged frontal cortex, you're more likely to be violent, right? You're more likely to act out in the aggression because the prefrontal cortex, I think it's the ventral, I think Sapolsky says it's the ventral media cortex, which is like, right, it's like a sub part of the prefrontal cortex, I guess, is responsible for, and I think I'm getting this right, but don't quote me on it, regulating the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for your fight or flight. It's responsible for the aggression. So when you have brain damage, you're more likely, if your cortex is damaged, you're more likely to be violent because you don't have an amygdala regulator, where you're not able to stop that impulse. So he takes a look at a lot of criminals who have brain damage. It's actually pretty sad because when that part of your brain is damaged, you're not regulating your impulses, so you're more likely to do something totally stupid, like get in a bar fight, or just make massive mistakes that end up putting you in jail for the rest of your life. It's a sad thing, but it's an important study nonetheless. CGH, welcome CGH. It's good to see you. And Levi, of course. I think I already welcomed you. Griswold Grimm says, I had an appointment. CGH says, the only true battles are within. Aggressive ungoverned has nothing to do with warrior tradition. Aggressive ungoverned. Aggression ungoverned. I'm not sure what you mean by that. But I do believe that the true battles are within. That's a damn wise thing to say. Levi Prout says, just smoke a joint without tobacco. We mix it with tobacco in the UK and people get more addicted. I'm trying to cut out tobacco. 25. Now my body is downhill from here. Well, that's a pretty smart way to think about it. I've been realizing that too, because I'm 26 and I've been thinking a lot about the fact that from here on out, like, the body doesn't necessarily continue to get more athletic. Let's just put it that way. So we're, for those of us who can use our bodies, right, that are able to exercise, then we shouldn't take it for granted that when we're in our athletic prime, that it's a precious time. It's a time to really take advantage of if we want to. There's a lot of people in my life who don't even have the ability to exercise their body, people disabled, things like that. But yeah, I can't imagine. But for those of us that do, man, it's a precious gift. Levi says, I hit my head skating more times than I can count. I'm never knocked out, just mild concussion. Yeah, that's rough, man. I played football and I got a couple concussions, and it's a rough thing. But yeah, we're lucky. If you hit your head and you make it through it, it's a lot of people with the major damage that comes out of concussions. It's just terrifying. Griswold Grimm says, my amygdala is overregulated. I'm underviolent. You're too civilized and controlled. That's hilarious. All right, well, I probably shouldn't say this, but you just bang your head against the wall a few times, you could under-regulate that. Thomas says, you're very welcome. CGH says 35 to 40 is where things really start to slow down. Yeah. It sounds like it. So maybe we get another 10 years or so, Levi. Let's see. Let's see how far we can stretch it. People with bipolar have a smaller hippocampus. Is that true? Wow, I didn't know that. Fascinating. Whatever. I'm going to look that up later. Hey, somebody regulate this guy. I don't know what he's saying. I need one of you wrenches to exercise your full force of. I've got a feeling it's only downhill from here. Levi says they think bipolar makes it smaller. Huh. Well, I got to look that up. Mercury would be interested in knowing that because, of course, he has bipolar. So that's fascinating. Well, everyone, what do you think? Any last minute anecdotes, questions, comments? Who to speak? Well, I don't know. Somebody comes in with a. I just had a. You don't have to do anything, Grizz, yet, but I'm just tracking some comments here and wasn't seeing good signs. I guess we shouldn't act too early. Wait for confirmation. What do you think? What should we spend? I got a couple more minutes. So any last minute comments, questions, rebuttals? Remember, everyone, when I talk about theories and I'll get to that question in a second, Levi. When I talk about theories or what I'm learning. I don't know. I don't have a corner on truth. Could be wrong about everything I believe. I don't think I am, but I'm not. I don't want to be arrogant enough to think that I have some sort of answer on anything. But the best I can do is attempt to learn as much as I can. And I think it's important to feel confident in what you learn and to exercise that education. So, all right, let's read this. Levi says, you play much video games, Ryan, or do you ban yourself? I go through cycles with video games. I enjoy video games. I don't have any issue with playing them personally. I have in my early 20s. I think it got out of hand sometimes in my late teens, but at these days, a video game is akin to watching a TV show after a long day. You know, like if I feel like I've had a productive day, or on the other hand, if I've had a really productive week and I want to take a day off, then I just let myself play video games because I know exactly when it doesn't feel good anymore. Like when I'm in that, like when I'm creating this lethargic, addictive cycle where I'm not feeling good, I don't feel relaxed. I just feel like I'm sitting in my own spew, so to speak, to be kind of to activate your imagination a little bit. That's when I need to stop. So I just trust myself to know that point, and I stop. You know, I exercise my free will by making choices on that end. So it's not something that I worry about. A lot of times I'll put on a podcast, like especially if I'm fried. Like, I'll give you an example. I went to the gym, went for a run, got a lot of work done. Whatever. I've done all this stuff, and I'm just feeling brain dead. I'll just throw on a podcast and play Skate 2 or Skate 3 or play Halo or Red Dead Redemption or something like that. It's kind of a way that I just zone out. I just go, or sometimes I'd rather like read a book or do something else. You know what I mean? So I kind of try to treat it like a balance if I can. But yeah, I actually, Jonathan Haidt talks about video games, how it's a misconception that video games are bad for cognitive development. They're actually helpful in some ways. I want to look into that research more, but he's mentioned it a few times. But yeah, I do think it can be a problem for some people. I know a lot of people that would be better off just abstaining from video games for a prolonged period of time. And I've had to do that at times, and it's been good for me. Sorry, Longstone. My eyes get cross-wired here. You say it's not CHG. It's CHG, not CGH. So I'll just call you Longstone or Stone. Thanks for correcting me. I apologize. Mercury says, what effects does having a smaller hippocampus have? Levi says, I'm not too sure. Yeah, we're gonna look into that, Merc. I'm gonna follow up on that. It's got to be somewhere in this massive textbook on neuroscience. Maybe. Could not be, actually, but it might be in here somewhere. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a quick little index on bipolar here just to see. So let's just focus. Bipolar disorder, 764. Page 764. All right, we're going to find it. Okay. Bipolar disorder. All right, I'm going to read this to you all. And if it gets too boring, then sorry. I'll stop reading if it's too dry. Like major depression, bipolar disorder is a recurrent mood disorder. It consists of repeated episodes of mania or mixed episodes of mania and depression, and therefore is also called manic depressive disorder. Mania, derived from a French word meaning crazed or frenzied, is a distinct period of abnormal and persistently elevated, expansive, or irritable mood. During the manic phase, other common symptoms include inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, a decreased need for sleep, increased talkativeness or feelings of pressure to keep talking, flight of ideas or a subjective experience that thoughts are racing, distractibility, increased goal-directed activity. Okay, so we're going to skip past it. I don't need to tell you guys about bipolar, especially those who have it. Let's see here. Biological basis. Trying to find this hippocampus stuff. Let's see. This would just, honestly, I doubt that I'll find it on this podcast because it would take me a long time, an hour or so of looking through this stuff to really tease it out. But I'm sure there's some information in here somewhere. Sorry, couldn't find it for you. My apologies. Griswold Grimm says, just remember, they don't teach you the forbidden knowledge in school. That's a good... Corey says, I keep searching for the knowledge key, the lock that turns endlessly. We are always learning and growing. Stay thirsty for knowledge. That's beautiful. Levi says, I just recently 100% every GTA game from GTA 3 to 5. Took me all year. I enjoyed it. It was engaging. I have the mentality that if you can 100% a game, you can 100% life. That's great. That's great. If you can figure out a way to make video games help you in life, then more power to you. Griswold Grimm says, and believe hard in neuroplasticity in the brain rewiring superpower. Yes. Our brains are pretty amazing. Levi says, I tasked myself to beat all GTA games to prove I can persevere. Thomas says, I'd love to know how you fit your reading around your profession. Thanks for the stream, by the way. Hope to catch your next one. Yeah, so for me, in understanding transformation, when it comes to the Jungian studies, when it comes to the neuropsychology, transformational theory, general psychology theory, all of these conceptualizations end up somehow informing a practice, right? So if you understand the brain, then you can understand how we change and grow. If you understand the archetypes, then you understand how we activate our imaginations, how we become possessed by certain parts of ourselves. So all these things to me are interdisciplinary interdisciplinary avenues for self-discovery. They're all a part of an explanation for the human experience and how to collaborate with those truths. So, for example, I'll give you one example of how I'd apply some of this. Ritual, the power of consistent ritualistic action. So if you have a goal and you want to bring that goal into realization in your life, whether that's a direct, concrete goal, like I want to get to the gym more and I want to be fit, or if that's more of an abstract goal, like I'd like to feel more easygoing, I'd like to feel relaxed. If you implement a ritualistic action that you do on a daily basis that is in direct relationship towards that goal, the simple science of the matter in that particular circumstance is that you're going to rewire your brain. It's just that simple, right? I mean, consistent repetitive action is going to create a series of neural pathways. So I know that that's going to happen. And I know that those old neural pathways are still going to be there. Like, there's still going to be avenues which I can fall back into if I'm not vigilant. I can still fall back into disconnection. I can still fall back into anger, irritability, and resentment. Those are all avenues that are still there. But the less that I use them, the more that they'll atrophy. Because it's just like a muscle. If you don't use it, it's not going to be as strong. So my cousin told me this great thing. You have to use your free will. You have to exercise your free will for it to be real. So I have to exercise my capacity for choice in order for the choice to actually exist. If I don't exercise it, it's not in existence. Longstone says, "No worries, thank you." Yeah, sorry I've been doing that. I think I've been mispronouncing it or misreading it for probably every stream. Just a little brain mix up there, a little cross wiring. Griswold said, "The problem with games is that supernormal stimuli is a thing." Yeah. Adela Darling says, "Thanks, Ryan. Great to have you back. My coffee missed you." I missed you too. Mercury says, "Hi, Adela, and everybody else as well." Gris says, good to see you, Mark. Been bogging down in the Lucia chapter, or Lucia chapter. I don't know which way to pronounce that. I'm guessing that is in Jerusalem by Alan Moore, the book that Mercury and Gris is currently reading and Mercury has read. So anyways, I got to go. Was planning on only doing an hour, but I did about an hour and a half. So it's time for me to sign off. I'll see you all on Friday morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And thank you all for joining and bearing with me here as I get back into streaming. And thank you for being so supportive and so fun to hang out with. I'll be in touch with all of you soon, and feel free to write into the channel, sorting myself out 0 @gmail.com if you have any requests. You want to talk to Mercury and I, if you want to if there's a subject you'd request that we talked about. Actually, Discord's even better for topics like that. Go into our Discord server. Let's see here. See if I can pull up the Discord link. I should have it on hand, but I'm going to share it right in the chat here so you have it. Oh, shit. What the hell is my username? Let's see. Get it on my phone. I'm just going to put the Discord link in the chat so y'all can. The Discord's really great. If you're not on the Discord, I highly recommend it. Constant conversation going on in there. It seems pretty cool so far. Lots of meaningful subjects. Griswold Grimm has been kind enough to organize it for us. He's the primary moderator, the Grimm moderator, as he's called. And yeah, it's been a really rewarding place to talk. So let's see. I'm trying to find the, oh, here it is, the shared link. Okay, this link will expire in 1 day. I'm going to share from my other account since I'm on my phone. You see it in the chat, should have just popped in there, right? I just put it in. Why isn't it in? Oh, God damn it. Is YouTube moderating it? My own? Come on. For some reason, I'm trying to put the Discord link in the chat, and it's not working. Let's try it again. It worked that time? Nope. It's just blocking. It's YouTube is blocking every attempt. So I'll put it in the description. I'll put it in this description for this video, and it'll be. And Grizz, by the way, I think I figured out how to make it so the Discord link never expires. Is that something you'd recommend? God damn it. All right, it's not working because I don't have the link on my computer. Pain in the ass. Let's try it one more time. I don't understand why it's I'm gonna make this work. All right, I figured it out now. I'll log in on my account, the sorting myself out account. So, all right. There it is. Boom. Thank you for your patience. The Discord link is in the live chat right now. I'll give you a few seconds here to click on it if you're interested, so that I don't shut down the stream. I don't know. Does the chat stay open after I shut down the stream? Like, can you just stay on the chat? Because I can never tell. Oh, F. Gilbert's here. Welcome. I was just about to leave. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. You stay awesome as well. Thanks for being here. All right. I'm gonna head out. Thank you all. See you later.